Welcome to our session on review. My name is Amy Moses, and I have had the privilege to teach sixth grade for 7 years at Pensacola Christian Academy. Throughout these 7 years, the Lord has allowed me to work with countless students and see many of them achieve as they go on to 7th grade. As we look at review today, I want us to help build a foundation of facts. Many of us are great at bringing in those creative elements. Maybe before in your class, you've worn a silly costume, or maybe you've brought in something from home to help illustrate a point. I know for me in sixth grade, one of my favorite things to do is to bring in food. It always gets their attention. Teachers, we work so hard to get their attention when we're teaching those brand new concepts. Today, I want to give us some practical tips to help us as we not only teach those concepts, but review those concepts. As we look at review today, we're going to see how the Abeka curriculum can really help you as you teach your students to think as well as to think critically as they're working at school each and every day. When we think about review, there are really two main parts to our review time. First of all, we want to get the mastery of facts. Facts are so important as we teach our students. There are facts in arithmetic, facts in language, facts in science and history, things that they need to be able to recall. But factual knowledge is not the only part of a review. We also must teach our students to think critically. When we're building that foundational knowledge, there are two things that are part of building that foundation. One is repetition, and the second is recall. Repetition would simply be the drilling of cards, the drilling of facts, the review time that we use each and every day to make sure that our students know what we've taught. Recall would be more along the lines of asking a question and seeing if our students could answer. Repetition of facts is used often in arithmetic and language or phonics skills, and recall would be more suitable for things like history and science. Once we know that our students have mastered those facts, we know that we can then get them thinking critically. As they're thinking critically, there are many levels of thinking that we want them to achieve. We not only want them to understand and have that basic knowledge, we want them to be able to analyze, to evaluate, to figure out why did I get that answer, to be able to create their own learning experiences. As we are thinking about review today, we're going to use several practical steps that will help you take what can sometimes be a very short time and make it as profitable as possible. In thinking about review, there are several types of review that the Abeka curriculum calls for. The first is what we would call a daily review. A daily review is often found at the very beginning of your lesson plan. It will tell you to review a particular concept or to review a particular section. In doing this, you have so many options to keep your review interesting as well as profitable to your students. Another type of review that will come up often in the Abeka curriculum is what we would call a test review. A test review typically comes the day before or maybe 2 days before a test, and it gives you as a teacher an opportunity to see if your students are ready for that upcoming test. Test review days can be some of the most fun and profitable learning experiences for your students if done properly. Within both of these types of review, daily review as well as test review, we want to utilize a variety of methods. Not only do we want our students to be able to recall facts orally, we also want our students to be able to get some written practice. And as we look at our session today, we're going to try to give you some practical ways, some practical tools to use these types of reviews to help your students succeed. We'll first start with oral review. In thinking about oral review is any time you have your students reciting with you or giving you an answer orally. When you first teach a concept, it will help you greatly if you can make up some songs or special mnemonic devices that will help your students remember what you are teaching. One place where this is so profitable is in history. Many times when we're teaching maps and things in history, it's very difficult for students to just come up with the right country or the right river or the right location. But if you're able to simply put a tune behind those facts, Oftentimes, students will much easier recall those facts, and you'll have a wonderful tool to use in your review time. It'll not only make it easy for them to remember, it'll make it quick for you to get through. Another way that you can help when teaching facts or teaching concepts is, if possible, create mnemonic devices or mnemonic phrases that will help students recall facts quickly. For example, in 6th grade arithmetic, we get to master the ability to find percents. In doing this, some students really struggle with that process. So we've come up with what we call FERDIP. You start with a fraction, you reduce that fraction, you change that fraction to a decimal, and finally you end up with your percent. When you first teach that concept, if you teach the students to FERDIP, every single time a problem like that comes up within a review or on a worksheet or on a chalkboard problem, all you simply need to say is FERDIP, and your students will know exactly what to do. Now, although these memory hooks, songs, and mnemonic devices can be a help to you, Abeka has also equipped us greatly with tools that help us during this oral review. 2 of the greatest tools Abeka gives us are, number 1, their flashcards, and number 2, their charts. These flashcards are invaluable in helping you run a fast-paced, effective review. The charts serve the same purpose, but are simply used in a different way. Now, when using flashcards and charts, there are several tips that will help you use these products effectively. One tip when using flashcards is to make sure that you hold your flashcards up high enough for the majority of your class to see them. When you're using your flashcards, if the class cannot see them, they are not going to be a profitable tool for you at all. Sometimes the temptation when using flashcards is to only hold it for the one student who is answering. But we want to reach our entire class as much as possible and get them thinking with us. So when using flashcards, hold them nice and high so that the majority of your students can see them, even if you're not directing that question to them at that exact moment. Another tool that will help you, or another tip that will help you in using your flashcards, is the way that you flip your flashcards. You want to flip from back to front. This does several things for you. It helps you as the teacher know the answer to what's on that flashcard before you flip, and it is much easier to hold the flashcards in your hand while you are flipping if you will flip from back to front. Making smooth time of your flashcard review will help you save time, and it'll also be less distracting to your students than having you be there and have to flip slowly through your cards. You do want to move as quickly as possible, and trust me, this takes practice. As you're getting ready for this school year, I encourage you, take a few moments, maybe work with a team teacher or a coworker, and time yourself. See how many flashcards you can get through within a certain time period. The more quickly you can move through that flashcard review time, the easier it is going to be for you to get in a lot of practice during those times. Something else that you can do with your flashcard review, and something that students will love, is your time playing games. Games are a great way to get your students engaged and thinking. We'll get into some more specific games in just a few moments, but using games during your flashcard review will make it a very effective time. The last thing that you want to remember when using your flashcards is to engage all students, especially when playing those games. We don't want to just focus on 2 when we have 12, 13, 15, 20, maybe even 30 students sitting in our classrooms. If we will hold our cards high, if we will ask questions outside of rotation in a game, it will help us engage our thinkers and not just the 2 that are participating at that time. We've talked through several things about a review, such as our flashcards, our review games, and our oral drill, but I want you to be able to get a picture of what does this look like. So we have the opportunity together to look at Mrs. Krug's 2nd grade class. Mrs. Krug is going to be teaching a phonics review time taken from lesson 67. As she teaches her children and as she reviews with them, I want you to take special note of how she holds her flashcards. Look at how she flips from back to front. I also want you to note how she easily moves from a game to class recitation. She also does a great job with getting more than just facts out of her cards. See what you can pick up on as we watch.
Let's let's go ahead and review some of our special sounds that we've been learning. When I'm down, you're down, and when I'm up, so are you. Ready? Begin. Let's take a look at the back of our cards. I spy with my little eye a word that is a proper noun. What word is it, Adley?
Monday.
It is Monday. How did you know it was Monday, Gage?
Because it has a capital letter.
Well done. Now I'm looking with my little eye on this card again, and I need an animal. Who sees it? Reagan?
A lion.
Well done. Let's look at the other card. Let's see. I see another animal. Who sees it? Adriana?
Zebra.
Zebra. There's another one on here. Noah?
Buffalo.
Well done. Let's read some of these words. Let's start with the ladies. Read this side. Ready? Begin.
Zebra. Animal. Umbrella.
Boys?
Camera. Buffalo. Canada.
Well done. I think I see another proper noun. What is it, Michael?
Canada.
Well done. Let's look over here. I spy with my little eye another proper noun. I'm not going to ask that same question again. Looking for something that is a money. Jaden? Well, not penny. It has to have that Second City sound. Jasmine?
Price.
It is not price. Price has to do with money, but it is not an actual object of money. Gage?
France.
No, not pants. Mike?
Cent.
Cent is correct. So cent is a type of money. You have cents when you're counting your change. Looking for another word on here. This is part of your body. And I see so many of you smiling at me right now. Mia?
Face.
Face is correct. Looking at this special sound, what were these words? What special sound do you see in all of these words? Adriana? Look carefully. It falls in the middle of a word. There you go. You got it. And if that one falls in the middle of the words, which one falls at the end? Kaden? It is a W. And what special sound has a W, Olivia? There you go. And I think you guys are all warmed up and ready for our game of one of our favorites, Cross the Pond. So let me have some people working hard up to the front, starting with Macy, Reagan, and Stella against Kaden and Mike and Mia. When I give you the special sound, you give me the clue word. When you see the special sound, you give me the clue word. Ready?
Phone.
Phone is right. Taken.
T.
Mike?
Eli. I-E.
I-E is correct. Well done.
U.
New word?
Pull.
Pull is right. Well done. The opposite of push.
W-G.
Thought is correct. So take Kaden.
Church.
Think of the other one.
Chorus.
Chorus is right. Neither of you got that point. Go to the back of your rows.
Hair.
Why got it?
Eli.
Kaden.
Stella.
Stella.
Stop.
That was Mike again. And we are out of time for this round. Back in your seats. More people up the front. This time, Taylor, Monroe, Adley against Noah, Colt, and Trish. All right. Taylor.
Country.
Monroe.
U.S.
New word?
Untie.
Untie is right. And she took them all on this side. Back in your seats. That was a quick round. Next people, Madison with Reagan and Emily against Michael, Kingston, and Gage. Here we go.
Caught.
Caught is right.
A-O.
That was Kingston.
A-U.
New word?
Cause.
Cause is correct. Way to go. You may take him.
Fingerman.
That was Gage.
Good.
That was Reagan. Everybody is right. I need a new word for this one.
Tire.
Tire is a great one, and that pushes them over the edge. Way to go. Now I have a surprise for many of you because I put a word on the screen. I know you guys love to do this. First thing that you do before you start taking it apart and finding those special sounds is you have to do what to the word first? Adley?
Read it.
Yes, you have to read the word. Who sees the very first special sound? I see Caden smiling at me, so why don't you stand and read the word for us, Caden?
Drawbridge.
Yes, so who sees that special sound Caden saw as well? Macy?
Drum and drum. DR.
Yes, dur and drum, DR is right. What about the second one that you see? Michael?
On saw AW.
He found it. Smile really big at me if you saw on saw. All right, I think there may be a third one. Do you think so? Maybe a little? Yeah, okay. No, what's the third one?
BR.
Fur and bride, BR. And then what about that vowel there? Is that a long vowel or a short vowel, Mike?
Short.
Let's check. And he is absolutely right. Give him a thumbs up. He got it right. And then, are we finished? No? What's the very last special sound you see, Liam?
Jet and fudge. DDE.
And we got every single one of them right. Everyone pat yourself on the back. I'm not putting this together. I have one other word. Read this word for us, because again, we have to do that before we start analyzing the word. Read it for us, Noah.
Mountainous.
Yes, first special sound you see in mountainous, Olivia.
OU.
Yes, what special sound is OU? Reagan?
Ow and out.
Not ow and out. In this case, no, you are actually right, because I skipped ahead a little bit. Ow and out is right for mountainous. So I'm going to put that because that says that ow sound. And then the other special sound you see, my personal favorite, Adriana.
Ton and max and CAIN.
Well done. And then last in the word, who sees it? Cole?
In country OU.
There is the in country that I was thinking of before I skipped ahead. And now we have analyzed both of our words on our screen.
I hope you enjoyed getting to watch an actual class. You saw that she had a lot of fun with her students during that review game, and not only was it fun, it was profitable for her students. As we transition into our next part of our session, I want to touch briefly on some review games and some tips that will help you make your games profitable. Now, Mrs. Krug in her video, she played a very simple game where the students simply crossed from one team to the next until one entire side of the classroom was full. This is a great game that gets many students moving and actively participating. When you're playing review games, you want to train your students from the very beginning of the school year to be active listeners. As was mentioned with our flashcard review, we don't only want to focus on the 2, 3, or 4 participants that are playing at that particular time. We want our review to be profitable to the entire class. So how do we do that? One great way to do that is to incorporate what I like to call bonus or popcorn questions. Throughout a review time, although 2 students may be participating, without the student's knowledge, I'll throw out a question and simply say, popcorn. This is an opportunity for those students who are not the contestants at that time to simply pop up and give me the correct answer. Another great way to keep all students engaged is to give extra points to students who know answers that contestants maybe did not. Perhaps you have 2 people playing and you ask a question and neither knows. That's a time to throw that question to the audience. Whoever knows in the audience has an opportunity to gain more points for their teams. Keeping your students engaged throughout a review is going to help that knowledge sink into their minds and help them to be able to recall those facts so they can get to those higher levels of thinking. Some great resources for finding games can be found in the front matter of your Abeka curriculum. Front matter of Abeka curriculum does an excellent job of putting games specific to certain subjects as well as to certain grade levels. If you haven't had an opportunity already to read through the list of games that are offered there, I would highly encourage you to start there as a stomping ground for your ideas to flourish. This is not nearly the only place where you can find great ideas. I know many of us have gleaned things from other teachers or things that we found online, but this Abeka Front Matter will certainly get you thinking about ways that you can adapt those to work for your class. There are several games that work on whatever level. They work in a first grade classroom just as well as a sixth grade classroom. One of those that many students enjoy is a simple game called Around the World. This game works by having two contestants stand and compete against each other. Whoever gets it right gets to go to the next contestant. Their goal is to get through as many people as possible so they can get all the way around the classroom, or as the game suggests, around the world. This is a great, quick, fast-paced review that'll help you get in many questions as well as get to every student within your class. Another very easily adaptable game are simple row competitions. You can play this by simply having the first person up in each row ask a question. Whoever gets it right gets a point for their team. There are countless ways that you can add variety to a row competition. You could give each row a special stuffed animal that they get to pass. You could give each row a particular name, or you could make each point worth a particular number of questions, or each question worth a particular number of points. And as you're doing those row competitions and those different games such as Around the World, your goal is to get to every student at least once, if not more than once, throughout that game time. Now, within your game time, you want your students to actively participate. You want to be watching for that student who maybe just doesn't answer each time. And perhaps when you throw out those bonus questions, throw one to him. Make sure he's with you. Make sure he's not making the other students in the class do your work or do their work. Make sure he is thinking with you. These tips are great for Around the World and for row competitions, but another thing that I have found helpful is to simply use a stack of Uno cards. These are very inexpensive and can help you on a variety of levels. I've used them before to determine point values for different questions that are asked. We've used the different colors to represent different teams. We've used the reverse card during Around the World and made people go back and backtrack where they've come from. Uno cards can really help spice up your games and just add variety, especially during those mid-year slumps where you just need something new to add to your review game curriculum. Another game that's been very popular on many levels is simply basketball. You can play this with the simple hoop or maybe even just a trash can, whatever you have available to you. And for each question that a student answers right, they have the opportunity to come up and shoot their basket. One way I've found to make this game move more quickly is adapting it to what I like to call 3 to shoot. Instead of taking the time to let every student come up and shoot, I'll have my scorekeepers tell me when we've gotten to 3 points on either team, and that third point gets to take that shot. This really keeps all of your students engaged because they want to know, am I that third point? Do I get to take that shot? That'll also help you save time as you're going throughout your questions. I know throughout this last school year, as well as going into this new school year coming up in the fall, many of us will still need to keep in mind health concerns of our students. If you still need to stay socially distanced or want to take extra precautions with cleaning and things like that, I would encourage you to adapt your games. Maybe instead of having your students go around the world, simply have the 2 students who are competing stand next to each other. In doing row competitions, I would avoid passing things from desk to desk. However, you could choose to have 2 or 3 scorekeepers who get to move the items to certain locations around the room. Whatever works best in your classroom, find things that you can adapt to help your students during their review time. As we continue to think about review games, another helpful tool that Abeka has equipped us with, especially in language, is what we would call our sentence strips. Many times as language teachers, we constantly find ourselves making up new sentences to illustrate whatever it is that we're teaching that day. Abeka has done a lot of the work for us in their sentence strips. They have both digital sentence strips and flashcard sentence strips available. With these sentence strips, you can use one sentence strip to ask countless questions and get your students thinking about more than one topic at a time. For example, as you're using your sentence strip, whether digitally on a screen or on a flashcard, ask, what is my subject? What is my verb? But go beyond. Ask things like, Why do you think this word is capitalized? Or could you think of a different ending for this sentence? What do you think this comma is here for? Using those things for more than just finding subjects and verbs will really help you make the best use of your material and help you save time as you prepare those review lessons. One great suggestion that curriculum makes is holding what is called a language bee. It really works very similarly to a spelling bee, where you go around and ask each student a question. As you ask the questions, you can add variety, and you can also make each question worth a different point until you finally get to that top language winner. These games during language, as well as your other class times, will really help enhance your lessons. Now, at the very beginning of our session, I said we not only want to use oral review, we also, when we're able to, want to use what is called written review. Now, written review will not come up as often as oral review during our daily review times. But whenever you have a worksheet that has a review section, or perhaps you're reviewing for a test, I would highly encourage you to use some of these written review techniques. One thing that I have loved to incorporate into many lessons is what I would call a mini quiz. And it is just that. It's mini, and it's me dictating questions or perhaps showing questions on our projector. With these mini quizzes, some things that will help you make these move quickly and effectively in your classroom are, first of all, train your students to keep a scrap sheet of paper in the front of their books. If they have it there, every time you say prepare for a mini quiz, they have it right there, ready to go. Something else that will help is for you as the teacher to just have a list of questions from each subject that you can draw from. I know for me personally in my language book, I've written things in the space that the teacher editions provide, things that I know students struggle with on tests that provide us a little bit of extra written practice before we get to those tests and quizzes. One other quick and easy way to do these mini quizzes is simply by handing each student a dry erase board or having several students work on the chalkboard and checking their answers. In just a moment, we're going to get an opportunity to see both our sentence strip review and a mini quiz put into a short language class. This is my 6th grade class. My 6th graders love language because we get to incorporate so many games into our review times. As you're watching, this is taken from lesson 146. Think about how I ask the questions. Take note of how many different types of questions I used as we're looking at the sentence strips on the chalkboard, and notice how quickly and easily we transition from sentence strip review to our mini quiz. Let's stand across our prepositions. Begin.
A board of below, cross after against along, among around at. These are the first ones, before, behind, below, beneath, side, between, beyond. Lie down, during, step forward, from, inside, to, like, near, up, off, on, over. Past tense, to, throughout, to, toward, underneath, until, up, upon, with, without. Now we are finished.
Chelsea, grab out your scrap sheet of paper. As we're looking up here, listen to what I ask you. We're going to start with our first girl, first boy. So Mariah, Christopher, looking at this sentence. My mother wrote a long letter to my Aunt Grace. Verb?
Wrote.
He's got it. Next two people. What is your subject? Mother is the right answer. Mom wrote to her what? Mom wrote?
Grace.
I disagree. Kira, what's your answer? Letter. Austin, going back to you, what do you think Grace would be? Look at your clue word.
Object of the preposition.
Object of the preposition. Next two people. So we got Oswald and Adriana. Folks, what kind of verb do I have? Action or linking? Linking is correct. Oh no, excuse me, action is the right answer. Remember, Oswald, if it's linking, that means it's going to be on my linking verb list. Going to AJ and Elise. If I have a linking verb, that makes letter A. D-O, you can be confident. Remember, we have our friend Sabdo, subject, action, verb, direct object. Looking here, what type of sentence do I have?
Imperative.
Is not the right answer. Think about, Ethan, what is this doing? This is,
Asking a question.
so that would make it interrogative. Rebecca, what was another clue? It's interrogative. It did. Next two people, as they're looking here, why is I capitalized?
It's subject.
It's a subject, true, but what's true about the pronoun I?
It is.
I always capitalize it. Genevieve's got it. What next people? What's your verb here? Evan, I believe that's you.
Take.
That's part of it. May take is exactly right. Back here to the beginning. Why did I have to use I instead of me here?
Because me is the
Subjective.
It's subjective is what I'm looking for. How many disciples did Jesus have? Verb.
Did.
Did.
Many.
Not many. Think about which word is either on your verb list or something you can do. Here, Kendra's got it. Did have is exactly right. Next to who or what did have. Be careful about your answer.
Disciple.
I disagree. Austin, what do you think?
Jesus.
Jesus is the right answer here. Kira, let's look. Who is it that is having something in this sentence?
The disciple.
The disciples don't have anything. Who has the disciples? Jesus. So what's your subject?
Jesus.
Jesus. Nicely done. Next two people. At recess, the three girls jumped rope and played dodgeball. What's compound about this?
The verb.
The verb is correct. Next two. How about I diagram? Next girl. How about I diagram a compound verb?
Rocket.
Rocket ship is exactly right. Why is Hindenburg italicized?
Because it's the name of the ship.
You are correct. Underline names of ways you travel. What are they, class?
Ships,
trains, and airplanes.
airplanes.
And looky here. The deer and her fawn strolled into the meadow and grazed on the green grass. What's compound here?
Dawn and fawn.
True, which would be the what of my sentence.
Subject.
Subject. There's also something else, Genevieve, you know? If compound subjects, anything true about my verb? It is. What are my two verbs here, Genevieve?
Strolled and grazed.
She's got them both, strolled and grazed. Popcorn if you spot the prepositional phrase. Austin, what is it?
On the green grass.
On the green grass is one of them, and what's the other one, Isaiah?
Into the middle.
Into the meadow is correct. You have your scrap sheet of paper. I want you to number 1 through 5, so you can get all 5 of these questions correct. Before we do so, however, I'm going to give you a adjective. You give me the comparative and the superlative. Good,
Better, best.
bad,
Worse, worse.
little,
Less, least.
What is it, class?
Little, less, least.
We got them all 3. All right, number 1. Number 1. What degree of comparison is used for 2 things? What degree of comparison is used for 2 things? Number 2. What degree of comparison is used for 3 or more things? What degree of comparison is used for 3 or more things? Number 3 and 4, you'll want to turn your attention to the screen. I'm going to show you a sentence here. You write the word, or find the word rather, that is an error. This sentence says, of the 4 cookie choices, I like the chocolate chip better. Find the word that is an error. Of the 4 cookie choices, I like the chocolate chip better. Number 4, same thing. It says, I am the worst at basketball than she is. I am worse at basketball than she is. And number 5, you get to be creative here. I want you to take the word bad, use it in the comparative degree in a sentence. Take the word bad, use it in the comparative degree in a sentence. Pop center dust when you're done. They got several people. Put your finishing touches on that sentence. And let's check. You might not be all the way done with number 5, but let's check the first 2. Number 1, Mariah, if I'm comparing 2 things, what degree am I using?
Comparison.
She's got it. Number 2, if I'm comparing 3 or more things, Isaiah, that would be, clap twice if you agree. Good. Number 3, what was wrong with this sentence? Of the 4 cookie choices, I like the chocolate chip, Jeb.
Best.
Best is what it should say, and why?
Because it's talking more than 2 cookies, so
Yeah.
it can't be better than this.
You're exactly right. And then our last one here, I am worse at basketball than she is. Amelia, fix it for me. It would say, I am worse at basketball than she is. What is the comparative form of the word bad that you should have used in your sentence? AJ, it would be the word?
Worse.
Is exactly right. Stand if you used worse in your sentence for number 5. Good. Wave at me if you got all 5. Questions for those that are seated? All right, clear your desk. You may be seated. I hope you enjoyed getting a snapshot of what these sentence strips can do in a classroom, and I hope that you'll be able to utilize some of these tips in your own class this year. As we continue with our review, we know that the goal of our review is not factual knowledge. The goal of our review is to create thinkers. Thinking is not only a skill that's helpful in school, but I'm sure as you have found, it's helpful in life as well. In order to develop thinking, we want to incorporate at least one, if not more, higher level thinking question into every review time that we do. As we think about Bloom's taxonomy and his pyramid of higher thinking, we know that we start on that base level of facts and simple understanding, but we don't want to stay there. On every grade level, we can at least get up to application or analysis of what we are teaching our students. And as they increase in their elementary as well as into their high school careers, they'll finally get into those creating things. But we as elementary teachers have the job to instill those skills into our students' minds. We can do this in several ways as we are using our facts to build that foundation of knowledge at the bottom of the pyramid. Some ways to find out if your students know more than just the facts are reword your questions. You should avoid asking a question the same way every time. When we do this, we simply train our students to answer the question that we're asking. We don't ask them to think beyond and apply their knowledge in a different way. Another great habit to get into is to ask our students, why is that true? Or how do you know that that's your answer? When we ask these sorts of questions, we can really get a glimpse into our students' mind to see if they know what they are talking about. As we move up on our pyramid, we know that we'll get into evaluation and to creation. These might not be ones that you get to every single day, but you should make it your goal to find a time once a week or once every 2 weeks where you can really get your students thinking. Now, we're not left alone in figuring out how in the world do I get my students to those higher levels. The Abeka curriculum has done an excellent job of giving us as teachers tools in our teacher editions to help springboard into those higher level questions. As you look here, you'll see a page from the 6th grade history book. In 6th grade, students get to start the year by learning about Canada as well as transitioning into all of North America. Notice how on the side of our teacher edition, there are additional questions that we can use to ask. These are a great way to get our students thinking as well as to incorporate into our next day's review. When you're doing your review the next day, maybe you didn't get to that higher level question that you wanted to. Save it for the next day and get to it. Ask those how questions, ask those why questions, and use these tools that we're equipped with through the Abeka teaching editions to get there. As we continue thinking about critical thinking, another great tool is our workbooks. In language and arithmetic both, there are many sections that not only help our students think through the new concept that we've taught through that day, but also review those concepts that they've learned in the past. As we take a look at this worksheet here, this is from our 2nd grade language book. Notice how the 2nd grade language book requires the student to start with that factual knowledge. All they're simply doing at the top of this worksheet is circling those special sounds. But as they go on to sections 2 and 3, they're asked to finish those sentences. They're asked to think, okay, what do I think would be a great way to make a subject there? What do I think would make a great way to complete that thought? These exercises are a great way to fashion our reviews. The next day when you go in to review that lesson, have a few things that are similar to this on your screen or chalkboard, or simply ask your students a sentence and see can they find out what that subject and verb is. As we take a look at this arithmetic worksheet, I love how in the margin of this teacher edition, from this arithmetic book worksheet, how the curriculum has broken down each level. It teaches us there, hey, this is where you're applying. This is where you're evaluating. As you continue looking there, you notice that it does say recall because we know that knowing those facts first off set that foundation for building those higher level thinkers. As I said, we want to make it our goal at least once a day in our review times to incorporate these higher levels of thinking. We get another opportunity opportunity to take a look at some real-life students in a real-life classroom. You're going to get a glimpse of Mrs. McQueen in her 4th grade class. Mrs. McQueen is reviewing a health chapter that involves burns and skins. Notice how she takes the facts that she has taught her students and transitions to that higher level of thinking. She's reviewing from lesson 150. As you watch, take note of how she gets her students to think critically.
Let's start reviewing for chapters 4 and 5. We have a new game today, and I decided to make a beach volleyball game. What do you think would be important if we were headed to go play some beach volleyball? Zoe?
Sunscreen.
Yeah, we will need sunscreen to block the ultraviolet rays. Well, boys, if you get a question up, you'll see a point to be added to your side. And ladies, if you get a question right, we will add a point to your side. What are the tiny parts that make up the skin called, Michael?
Cells.
Correct. What is the outer layer of skin, Eva?
Epidermis.
That is correct. And what is the disease that someone would get if their bones became extremely weak, Mila?
Rickets.
Yes. Ooh, I gave 2 questions to the girls. I'll have to give this next one to the boys. What do we call an extra thick layer of your epidermis? You might get one of these on your hand if you've been working extra hard. Evan? Callus is correct. Well, we have a tied game in this next question. It is not just worth 1 point, but it's worth 2 points. What would be the result if we did not have sweat glands? Micaiah?
We wouldn't get our body wouldn't cool down.
Right, we would overheat, and I'm glad that God designed our bodies to naturally cool down. Name the 4 signs of infection, Carson.
Swelling, pain.
What? Good, you got all 4. Great job. All right, ladies, what are the harmful rays from the sun called, Ireland?
UV rays.
UV rays is correct. Well, the ladies are leading by 2 points. Boys, you have an opportunity to tie the game. What would happen if you became hurt, but your body didn't create a scab? Evan? Zoe?
It won't protect it.
It wouldn't protect it, and it might even get an infection. Just a few more opportunities to continue this game. What is the second layer of skin called, Ireland?
The dermis.
Yes. What does the hair grow out of, Carson?
Hair follicle.
Why do you think God designed us to have 3 layers of skin, Michael?
So if the epidermis gets hurt, we still have 2 layers left.
What a perfect answer. And I'm going to add not 2, but 3 questions. Well, boys, the girls are winning by just 1 point. Let's see. How does perspiration leave your body, Micaiah?
From sweat glands.
Yes. What glands create oil in your body, Evan? Not sweat. Ireland?
The sebaceous
The
glands.
sebaceous glands. Which glands is it, Evan? The sebaceous is correct. And the girls have won our volleyball game. Well, students, it's time to apply some of our knowledge. Mila, if you'll come and help turn on the light for me, and we're going to head over here, and we are going to apply what we learned in this chapter about the 3 types of burns. We have our diagram here. There's going to be some things that are only true about 1 type. There might be something that's true about 2 types of burns. And I can think of 1 thing that is true about all 3 types of burns. Let's see, Carson, what is true about the 1st-degree burn?
That it affects the epidermis and it needs water.
Epidermis, and it needs water to treat it. Good job. see. What is true about the second degree burn, Eva?
It affects the epidermis and the dermis.
Mm-hmm.
It needs a bandage.
It gets to the dermis. And what type of bandage does it need?
Sterile.
Yes. Is there anything that would be true about the first and the second degree burn, Delia?
They both need treatment.
Ooh, they both need treatment. What layer of skin do they both affect?
They both affect the epidermis.
Yes, because it's the top layer. I'm going to abbreviate it. All right. Looking for a student that knows what's important about the third degree burn, Micaiah.
We need, it affects all three layers and we need medical treatment.
So what might you have to call?
911.
Right, because it's an emergency. Is there anything that would be the same about the second degree and the third degree burn? What do you put over them to keep them from getting infected? Eva?
Bandage.
Yeah, remember for a second degree burn, you might wrap the wound in a bandage. For the third degree burn, you just lay it on top. So we're going to put a bandage. Well, I was thinking really hard. How many of you think there is something that would be the same for the first or third degree burn? I couldn't really think of any. You thought of one, Delia?
They both heal if they have their exact treatment.
Okay, they can get better. What could be the same about all three burns, Micaiah?
All three burns are, they hurt.
They hurt, exactly right. And I'll write that in the middle for that. Well, I can tell that I have some fourth graders that know how to treat a burn if you come into contact with one. Great job.
Did you notice how Mrs. McQueen used that Venn diagram to help her students compare and contrast the different burns? Maybe you can try something like that in your class this upcoming school year. As we continue thinking about review, our goal in review should be to reach every single student. We know that in a classroom setting, we have our high-achieving students, our average bunch, and then our one or two lower students that really could use that extra help. So how do we reach them all? One thing I encourage you to do when you're grading work or checking papers is take a mental or written note of common questions that are missed. You'll know that the next day in review, you can really hit those things hard with your class and make sure that they know what they need to succeed. As we continue, we already touched on this a bit with our flashcard review, but this is also true in any type of review game. Throw out those bonus questions. Do not let your students sit and not think. During a test review day, this is very easy for students to fly under the radar without ever once answering a question. You can help eliminate this problem by switching games 2 or 3 times throughout your test review day. You can also ensure that each student answers by playing games such as Around the World or a row competition and then taking mental note of who's given answers and who hasn't. When you throw out those bonus questions, throw it to those students. Make sure that they're thinking with you. We also want to challenge our higher students, as well as our lower students, to begin that process of critical thinking. This is achieved by putting in those critical thinking techniques that we've already talked about earlier in our lessons. Sometimes our higher level students will get bored by just reciting facts over and over again. So use their knowledge. Help them help the rest of the class think through things like a Venn diagram or a comparison and contrast. Help them to think on those higher levels. One of the most important things you can do during your review time is to clear up wrong answers. After all, we want our students to be prepared for those graded assignments. And more importantly, we want our students to be prepared for the next grade level or for life afterwards. As we think about clearing up wrong answers, I would encourage you not only to clear up wrong answers, but also to redirect questions back to those students who missed answers. For example, if you ask a student what a verb does and they're not able to tell you, later in your review, go back to them and say, hey, what kind of word shows action linking or state of being? See if they're able to tell you that it's a verb. If they are, then you know that they've cleared that up in their mind. If they're not, then you'll know that, hey, that's something I need to work with that student on. Clearing up wrong answers and redirecting them back to that student at a later time in the game will help you especially reach those lower students. And one of the most beneficial things you can do during your review time is provide encouragement, especially to those that seem to miss answers frequently. Praise progress, even if it's little progress. You've probably heard that before. But the more we praise our students, the more they realize they can do it. Be your student's cheerleader. Be your student's encourager, as your goal is to reach each student in your class to help them master those facts and think on a higher level. We have one final video clip, and I think you're really going to enjoy it as we get to watch Miss Huang's class. Miss Huang is a first grade teacher, and she's teaching for us from lesson 143. As she teaches, notice how she reaches each student. Notice how she has a variety within her very short lesson, and notice how she gets through a lot of information. You'll also see her use of redirecting and rewording of questions. Take special note of what she does and see if there are things that you can incorporate in your classroom.
Right, church in position, I'm going to show you a combination. You give me the answer. 13 minus 4 equals 9. 13 minus 9 equals 4. 13 minus 8 equals 5. 13 minus 3 equals 10. See, church in position. Ooh, I'm going to call on somebody. Just give me the answer. Nice and loud. Just read the whole combination for me, Juliet.
Oh, 13 minus 0 equals 13.
Josiah.
13 minus 13 equals 0.
Austin.
13 minus 5 equals 8.
Zoe.
13 minus 12 equals 1.
Tristan.
13 minus 7 equals 6.
Fantastic. Now, throughout the year, we've been learning about place value. I say it, you say it. Ones, tens, hundreds.
Ones, tens, hundreds.
Look at my screen for just a minute. On my screen, I also have a card that says ones, tens, and hundreds. Looking at the ones place, how many stars are in the ones place? Alicia, count them.
4.
You're exactly right. How many in the tens place, Olivia? Just
1.
And how many in the hundreds place, Aria? There are
2.
Making this number what? Read it for us. Nice and loud, Austin.
214.
You're exactly right. Look at my next card here. What place do I start with first? Do I start with ones, tens, or hundreds, Casey? Now I start with the
1.
How many in the ones place, Elijah? Nice and loud, handsome.
5.
You're exactly right. How many in the tens place, Logan?
4.
And how many in the hundreds place, Cooper?
3.
Making my number to be what, Colton? Nice and loud.
145.
I have one more card. Ones, tens, or hundreds. Which place do I start with first, Christy Foster? How many stars in the ones place, Olivia?
2.
Ooh, I love how she has her answer ready to go. How many in the tens place, Cooper?
5.
And how many in the hundreds place, Levi? Just
1.
making this number to be what, Eliza?
152.
Fantastic. Stand. I say it, you say it. Ones, tens, hundreds.
Ones, tens, hundreds.
See, you may be seated. Now, we've learned a couple of measurements throughout the year. I have a couple right here. I'm going to say it. You say it after me. 1 gallon equals 4 quarts.
1 gallon equals 4 quarts.
1 pound equals 16 ounces.
1 pound equals 16 ounces.
1 dozen equals 12 things.
1 dozen equals 12 things.
1 hour equals 60 minutes.
1 hour equals 60 minutes.
1 yard equals 3 feet.
1 yard equals 3 feet.
1 foot equals 12 inches.
1 foot equals 12 inches.
1 year equals 12 months.
1 year equals 12 months.
1 week equals 7 days.
1 week equals 7 days.
Take a look at my screen for just a minute. 1 foot equals how many inches? Give me the full answer. Nice and loud. 1 foot equals how many inches, Aubrey? 1 foot equals?
1 foot equals 12 inches.
Perfect. Look at this next one. 1 yard equals how many feet? How many feet are in a yard? Give me the full answer, Colton.
1 yard equals 3 feet.
Fantastic. 1 week equals how many days? 1 week equals how many days? Tell me, Bryant. 1 week equals? Say it louder, handsome. Give me the full answer, handsome. So 1 week equals? You're exactly right. Take a look at this one for just a minute. I have 1 hour equals how many minutes? How many minutes are in an hour, Brooklyn? Let's think through this one together, Brooklyn. I have a clock right here. If my long hand is pointing to the 12, what do we count by for every number, Brooklyn?
5.
Louder, ma'am?
5.
You're exactly right. So if I'm going to start at the 12, you and I, let's count together. Counting by 5s, I'm going to move the 12. We're going to count by 5s until it comes back to 12. Count by 5s, beautiful. Nice and loud so we can hear you. Ready? 5,
10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60.
So 1 hour equals how many minutes, Brooklyn?
60
60, how many? 60 what, ma'am? 60
minutes.
So give me the full answer. 1 hour equals?
60 minutes.
So if I say in 60 minutes we're going somewhere, how many hours is that, Colton? Just?
60 minutes.
Oh, if I say in 60 minutes we're going somewhere, 60 minutes is how many hours? Just?
1 hour.
You're exactly right. Look at this for just a minute. I have 1 gallon. 1 gallon equals how many quarts? How many quarts are in a gallon, Aubrey?
4.
So give me
1
the full.
gallon equals 4 quarts.
You're exactly right. Now a dozen. We know several things that come in a dozen. Donuts come in a dozen. Eggs come in a dozen. How 1 dozen equals how many things, Lucia?
1 dozen equals 12.
Perfect, my boys and girls. Stand one more time. I'm gonna give you the measurement. You give me the answer afterwards. 1 gallon equals 4 quarts.
1 gallon equals 4 quarts.
1 pound equals 16 ounces.
1 pound equals 16 ounces.
1 dozen equals 12 things.
1 dozen equals 12 things.
1 hour equals 60 minutes.
1 hour equals 60 minutes.
1 yard equals 3 feet.
1 yard equals 3 feet.
Church your position. You may be seated.
I hope you enjoyed watching Miss Wong's class. She's such a fun teacher and her energy is infective. I hope you can incorporate some of the things that she did into your own review time. As we think about review, I can't help but think of things in Scripture that God reviews with us. You know, one thing that God reviews time and again is how much He loves us and how much He wants us to become like Him. You know, as teachers, we have an opportunity each and every day to share Christ's love with our students. We can do that by being prepared. We can do that by encouraging them. We can do that by noting their progress and helping them see that God is the one that gives them that wisdom. I hope that as you go throughout your school year, you'll remember that God has called you to this job as a teacher, that God's going to equip you as you teach your students, and that you'll make that room for review so that you can reach each of your students to not only grow in the knowledge of your subject matter, but also grow in their knowledge of God in this upcoming school year.